Hello everyone, it's Antron here, and today we are going to do the Clavier's Piano Explorer Show Episode 5. I am sorry that I cannot do the episode last month because my family are moving into a new house and I'm very busy. So, I decided that today is Sunday, so before tomorrow, which is I'm going to school, we're going to just do the episode today, because, yesterday, I'm busy too. I have my homework and stuff. I hope you understand. Okay, now let's get started with the episode. Now, the composer of the month January will be, drumroll please, Erik Satie. Da 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 da! Hooray! Alright, let's get started. Erik Satie, born in 1866, died in 1925. Erik Satie was born on the Normandy coast of France, near the English Channel, at the end of the Romantic period. His father worked as music publisher and encouraged Erik's interest in music. He began lessons on the organ when he was 8 and was accepted into the famous Paris Conservatory when he was 13. His teachers thought he was a brilliant musician, but also unruly and lazy. Erik only spent 1 year at the conservatory before its strict rules about behavior and musical composition drove him away. After school, Satie worked as a pianist in Paris pubs and nightclubs to earn a living. During this time, he became friends with Claude Debussy, the famous Impressionist composer. Although the two had different ideas about how to compose music, Satie's music influenced Debussy to use medieval chord structures in some of his works. Maurice Ravel, another French composer of the time, once said that Satie had an appreciable effect upon Debussy and himself. And indeed, most of the modern French composers. Satie spent most of his life in poverty, and although he was appreciated by other musicians, music critics were not impressed by his compositions. Satie, in turn, did not think much of music critics and was never afraid to say so. Satie's birthplace was Honfleur, a port town in the northwest of France. It is so beautiful that many artists, including Claude Monet, have gone there to paint it. Honfleur has been an important port for about 1,000 years because it is located on the bank of the Seine River, a major river that flows through France to the English Channel, very near Honfleur. Thoughts on music. Satie was very much against the heavy, serious, stuffy music being written by many composers at the end of the 19th century. He thought that the music of romantic composers like Richard Wagner was too elaborate. He felt that the popular songs and ragtime tunes he heard and played were more alive and pointed the direction that music should be heading. The music he wrote uses dance hall tunes, simple harmonies and unusual combinations, plain song, ancient modes from 1,000 years earlier, and long melody lines. Some of his music did not even have bar lines to create the effect of flowing, unaccented rhythm. His ideas fascinated many 20th century composers who tried them in their own music. Satie wrote many works for solo piano, including the Gymnopédies, which are probably his most famous works. They are 3 piano compositions that he began writing when he was about 21 years old. They are short works written in 3/4 time. He wrote descriptions for each one to tell the pianist how they should be played. Gymnopédie number 1. lent et doloreux, slow and painful. Ginopédie number 2, lent et triste, slow and sad. Ginopédie number 3, lent et grave, slow and solemn. Satie was often criticized during his lifetime by critics who did not understand his music and unusual ideas and sense of humor. However, he took music in new directions and influenced composers during his time and many who came after him in the 20th century. Trois Sarabandes. Shortly before he wrote the Gymnopédies, Satie composed Trois Sarabandes. There are 3 dances for solo piano and are considered his first important works that began to create his reputation as a leader in the new sound for French music. They are full of unusual soft chords to create the atmosphere and mood. Satie wrote many flats and double flats in this music, which makes them seem harder to read than they actually are. Trois means there 3 in French, and a sarabande is a slow dance that was popular in the royal courts in the 1600s, hundreds of years before Satie was born. Most sarabandes are in 3/4 time, 3 beats in a measure. They have 3 beats per measure, and Baroque composers like Bach and Handel often wrote sarabandes in their dance suites. The form was almost forgotten in the Romantic period until Satie and then other composers like Debussy and Erik Satie began to write them again. An eccentric composer, Satie liked to come up with unusual or funny titles for his works. One of his famous compositions is called 3 Pieces in the Form of a Pear. Supposedly, Debussy told him that his music did not have any form. Debussy meant a musical form like a minuet or sonata. Satie liked jokes, though, so he said that his music had the form of a pear. Another work written for violin and piano is called Choses vues adorite et gauche, sans lunettes, which means things seen to the right and to the left, without glasses. He had many other strange titles. To guide musicians, Satie often wrote directions in the music, but his instructions were sometimes very odd. He might instruct the musician to play as light as an egg, or like a nightingale with a toothache. People found the instructions so funny that they wanted to read them out loud during performances, so Satie put a warning on the music that said, "To whom it may concern, I forbid anyone to read the text out loud during the musical performance." Satie also enjoyed experimenting with unexpected sounds in his music. His ballet, Period, uses typewriters, airplane propellers, sirens, and other noisemakers for instruments. Alright, we are also going to talk about another composer named Jean-Baptiste Lully. Born in 1632, died in 1687. Let's start. Jean-Baptiste Lully was born in Florence, Italy, to a poor family in 1632. Jean-Baptiste, as he was called, did not get much formal education, but he did learn to play guitar and violin and was a talented dancer. When he was 14, a French nobleman brought him to France, where he went to work as a servant for a princess. While there, he learned more about music and began composing. When Lully was 20 years old, he lost his job. But he had become friends with the 15-year-old King of France, Louis XVI, whose nickname was the Sun King. He went to work for Louis as a dancer and played violin in the king's private music group Les Petits Violons du Roi, the little violins of the king. He studied music composition and soon became the king's personal composer and the music master to the royal family. Lully wrote many ballets for the Louis court. However, as the king grew older and less able to dance himself, he became less interested in ballet. Then Lully turned to composing operas. Back then, it was very important for composers to please their employers. Lully is most famous for his operas. In the 1600s, Italian opera was famous all over Europe, but Lully developed a new type of French opera called tragédie lyrique. He described it as tragedies set to music. Like Italian operas, Lully used fancy costumes, big sets, and large casts of singers, dancers, and musicians. The plot moved faster, and he made changes to the musical forms. He used woodwinds and horns as well as strings in his orchestras, unlike previous composers who mostly just had strings and harpsichord. Lully included the newly invented oboe in his orchestra as well as one of the first composers to write for the instrument. Lully's operas often included minuets, a popular dance during the 1600s. Lully usually wrote 2 minuets in a row with a repeat of the first one after the second one was finished. The second minuet was called a trio because it was played by a woodwind trio, 2 oboes, and a bassoon. By the classical period, this became the popular minuet and trio form. It includes a movement in many sonatas and symphonies. Mozart wrote a famous minuet and trio, and it became really popular, and it was actually Mozart's first work. So you can hear it today, Minuet and Trio K1. Just click Minuet and Trio K1. Here's how it's spelled. Minuet is M-I-N-U-E-T. And I think you already know how to spell that. Trio is T-R-I-O. And then you spell Mozart, M-O-Z-A-R-T. And if it's not there, just click K and then period, 1 and then period, and then search. I believe it's going to be there right away. So there is also more minuets and trios. If you like the form, then you can hear more. There is a lot of minuet and trios in the classical period and the Baroque period. I'm not sure that the Romantic period has a lot. I'm pretty sure classical period and Baroque period has a lot of minuet and trios. So be sure to hear them today. Lully was a demanding director and worked very carefully with his dancers and musicians to make sure everything turned out just right. He conducted performances by pounding a large cane against the floor. Supposedly, he died from an infection he got after banging the cane against his foot and injuring it. Ouch. Lully was a very successful musician. At the time of his death, he had a lot of money, several houses in Paris, and 2 country houses. All right, we are done about talking about the 2 composers. But first, we must go in to a musical joke first. Musical joke. Question: what 2 musical instruments does everyone have? Answer: eardrums. I like it how they put like a pig over here. Look at its ears. Funny. Yeah. Alright. And now let's go into the January birthdays. January birthdays. January 3rd, Victor Borge. Born in 1909, died in 2000. American pianist and musical comedian. January 5th, Arturo Benedetti Michelangeli, born in 1920, died in 1995. Italian pianist. January 5th, Maurizio Pollini, born in 1942. He is still living. Italian pianist. Also January 5th, Alfred Brendel, born in 1931. He's also living. Austrian pianist and Beethoven interpreter. January 6th, Alexander Scriabin, born in 1872, died in 1915, Russian composer. January 7th, Francis Poulenc, born in 1899, died in 1963, French composer, member of Les Six. January 7th, Jean-Pierre Rampal, born in 1922, died in 2000, French flutist. January 11th, Christian Sinding, born in 1856, died in 1941, Norwegian composer and pianist. January 21st, Placido Domingo, born in 1941, he is still living, Spanish tenor and conductor. January 23rd, Muzio Clementi, born in 1752, died in 1832, Italian composer and virtuoso pianist. Wow, that guy lived a long time. Muzio Clementi lived 80 years old. He lived 80 years. That's long. That's really rare. January 27th, Jerome Kern, born in 1885, died in 1945, American composer. January 27th, also January 27th, is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Like I said, he wrote a famous minuet and trio. Be sure to hear it today. Born in 1756, died in 1791, Austrian composer and pianist. Probably the most famous Austrian composer, I guess. January 28th, Arthur Rubinstein, born in 1887, died in 1982, Polish-American pianist. January 31st, Philip Glass, born in 1937, he is still living, contemporary American composer. January 31st, finally, last but not least, Franz Schubert, born in 1791, died in 1828, Austrian classical composer. And that is it for our episode. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode of Clavier's Piano Explorer. All right. Bye-bye. See you next time. Peace.